Hello everybody and welcome back to the virtual racing compound Porsche Super Cup. You join myself, Jack Werrell, once again in the commentary box here for round 3. We are still in the Americas, this time South America, Sao Paulo in Brazil, at the Autodromo José Carlos Pache, most commonly known as Interlagos, a circuit that is very well known to be recognised as the closing stages of the FIA Formula One World Championship. Well, like I say, we are here for round 3, and going off rounds 1 and 2 at Road Atlanta and Sebring, it's shaping up to be a very, very close season indeed. We've got the constant twists and turns of a very almost aggressive 15-minute sprint race to start the weekend's racing off, and then we go into the 25-minute feature race. So we've got lots more racing action on the way. A few new drivers to the series, so a few of them will be looking to cut their teeth and really show their mettle, show what they're made of to the drivers maybe more familiar with the series. But like I say, 15 minutes worth of sprint race action and followed by another 25 minutes of feature race action on the way. So I will be running you through all of the highlights here this evening. And by the looks of it, we are very, very quickly approaching the qualifying and the race sessions. So with the qualifying session completed, we now have the grid available to us for the first race of the evening, the sprint race. Matthew Forrest lines up on pole position with his virtual racing compound teammate Pete Plastow alongside. Row 2 is made up of Nicolas Cucatto and Chris Roberts. Row 3, Rob West and Craig Thompson. On row 4 of the grid, Harry Sherwood has Chris Pio for company, and rounding out your first 10 starters, we have Robert van den Heuvel in 9th with Stephen Orell in 10th. Then it's Tyler Campbell and Martin de Jong 11th and 12th, and starting on the final row of the grid is Remco Barlow for WPR Racing. Only the final 3 drivers not setting times in the qualifying session. And in a few moments' time, we will be getting underway for the first time here at Interlagos. You can see Matt Forrest sat up on the front row of the grid, just peeking over the crest there. We can get a slightly better camera angle of the cars already on the grid. We're waiting for Nicolas Cucatto. He joins the grid now. Now all we're waiting for is Tyler Campbell and Remco Barlow. So keep an eye out towards the tail end of the order for those guys to join in. But can Matthew Forrest convert a pole into a win? He does have, as we previously mentioned, Pete Plastow, his teammate, starting alongside, so potentially playing rear gunner here is Pete, getting ready to get underway for the first time here this evening. Nicolas Cucatto been there or thereabouts throughout the season so far, so we'll be able to see whether he can make any further improvements on his championship efforts. But now you can hear the drivers getting ready to start here at Interlagos, bouncing off the rev limiters. In a few moments' time, we will be getting underway. There we go, lights out, green flag here at Interlagos. It's a great start from Rob West. He's already gone up the inside of Nicolas Cucatto and Chris Roberts. They're going to be almost 3 wide in towards turn 1. Pete Plastow gets the best start. Contact between Chris Roberts and Rob West. That forces Matthew Forrest out towards the track externals. Pete Plastow still in the lead. Chris Roberts sat there in 2nd place. Craig Thompson now in 3rd. Or is he sideways and all the way around he goes? Then contact with, I think that's Robert van den Heuvel into the side of Craig Thompson. Nicolas Cucatto manages to find himself back in 4th place. Rob West, after a shaky start, is up into 3rd. Chris Pio has got all the attention behind him. He's got Remco Barlow for WPR just sat behind. Then Matthew Forrest trying to make amends for that earlier incident, right the way down in 10th place. But at the moment, it's still Pete Plastow leading, Chris Roberts in 2nd, Rob West in 3rd, then Nicolas Cucatto in 4th, Martin de Jong 5th, Harry Sherwood taking a slightly slower line, taking it nice and cautious on the opening lap of the race. Not too close up at the front end of affairs. The 2 VRC drivers of Pete Plastow and Chris Roberts trying to make good their escape, but newcomer, privateer Rob West, has had a great start, even with a little bit of contact, still pushing forward, trying to close the gap to the 2 VRC cars leading the way. Nicolas Cucatto just hanging on to the coattails. Then we get back to Martin de Jong for stage 1 racing, working his way through the final corner now, and then thrusting his way up the hill on the long run towards the line. A good exit from Harry Sherwood, jumps towards the inside. It will be the inside for the slight left-hander all the way towards the start-finish line. Then we get towards pit entry. You can use as much of that as you want. You've just got to avoid those tyres on the inside. But already, first lap completed. A good first lap from Chris Roberts, 3/10 quicker than Pete Plastow. His teammate Stephen Orell is closing up on the duo in front, running slightly wide Martin de Jong. That will compromise his run through turn 2. Stephen Orell gets a great run through there, uses all the curb he can get away with, slightly washes out wide, but still continues forward. All of the curb on the exit once again. What can Stephen Orell do about making a move in towards turn 3, has a little look towards the inside, then tucks back in towards the draft. There's contact between the pair of them. Hard into the Armco goes Harry Sherwood, avoided by Stephen Orrell and his Apex Tech teammate of Chris Pio. Or Chris Pio, pardon me. Remco Barlow manages to work his way through, but Harry Sherwood very, very hard in towards the wall after, I think, very slight contact from Stephen Orrell behind. So running towards the final corner now, Rob West has Nicolas Cucatto all over his tail. Through the final corner we go, running slightly wide is Rob West. That massively compromises his exit. They're side by side as they run towards the line. Rob West still on the outside, can potentially carry a bit more momentum, but the shorter line gifted to Nicolas Cucatto. They're still going to be side by side by the time they reach the line, I think. So Rob West, for the moment, hanging on to third place. They're swapping on the timing tower. Fastest lap of the race for Chris Roberts, a 1:33.726. You can see in the distance they're getting really close, but Nicolas Cucatto on the inside. Later on the brakes, a lock-up, but does manage to get the car slowed down. And up the inside, in towards the podium places now, Nicolas Cucatto. Rob West will have the draft assistance with him, so he might be able to make a move on the run-up towards what will be turn 4. So down the second straight they go. We've got a car leaving the pit lane. I think that could potentially be Harry Sherwood. Yes, it is. Returning to the circuit after what was quite a heavy impact in towards the Armco barrier at this point in the circuit as well. But at the moment, Nicolas Cucatto has managed to get in front and extend that advantage just enough to not really worry about what's going on in his rearview mirror. The lead battle somewhat close together, but bearing in mind Peter Plastow and Chris Roberts are going to be teammates, they should be fairly safe in their driving standards. So they'll be able to work together. Craig Thompson trying to recover as best he can after the earlier incident. Sat there in 10th place. He will have blue flags being waved at him in a short moment time. He does have Harry Sherwood just sat behind, but then we get back to the battle of Nicolas Cucatto and Rob West. Rob tucked underneath the rear wing. Through the final sector we go once again. And Rob West not too far adrift. Will very shortly be heading back on towards the start-finish straight for what will be the 4th time of asking, heading on to lap 5 of the race in a few moments' time. Rob West, he will have that draft as we've mentioned. However, Harry Sherwood only being a couple of tenths up the road, Nicolas Cucatto will be very hard to catch because he will be picking up the draft assistance, all the aerodynamic benefits from the car in front. They'll have to be slightly careful on the brakes, obviously carrying a bit more speed than usual, so they'll have to make sure they don't outbrake themselves. A lock up the road from Craig Thompson. He gets it slowed down in time and does manage to make the corner. Now traffic could potentially play a part in this battle because, of course, Harry Sherwood is trying to chase down Craig Thompson. So while there are 2 battles on circuit, one of them will be getting blue flags all the way through. So they've got to be so careful not to hold each other up and not to be too aggressive through the traffic. Leaders getting closer together once again. Peter Plastow still leading the way, punching the hole in the air for Chris Roberts. So Chris can sit there and just bide his time, try not to overheat his tyres, keeping up with Peter Plastow. Of course, he will be in the dirty air, so through the mid-corner, he might lose a little bit of front-end grip, which can, of course, once again increase the temperature of those front tyres. Pete taking a slightly wider line through the right-hander, managing to make it work, gets the kick off the corner, and it allows him to open up the entry for the next left-hander. So slightly quicker through the middle sector is Pete Plastow. But Rob West still making his intentions known, desperate to try and keep up and potentially get back past Nicolas Cucatto. On the run up towards turn 1 now, Rob West still sat there in 4th place. Nicolas Cucatto a little look to the inside, a big lock up. Rob West closes up on the brake, so Harry Sherwood now somewhat parking the car in the middle of the road. Rob West a big look to the inside, just grazed out of the throttle in hopes of not making any contact with the number 2 of Nicolas Cucatto. Rob West gets the better run, heading down the straight once again, has a little look to the inside, now throws the car, fully commits to the inside, but jumps on the brakes early. There's no real pressure to get the move done, gets a better run through turn 4. Through the left-hander of turn 5, running slightly wide, Nicolas Cucatto. That will pick up an incident point. On the run up the hill once again, Craig Thompson trying to escape from the car behind of Harry Sherwood, the Apex Tech machine. Rob West with the better run through the double right-hander uphill and then back on the brakes once again. It's such a busy circuit. Interlagos, Rob West all over the tail end of Nicolas Cucatto, almost pushing him through the right-hander and then the left-hander once again, punching his way back up the hill. And then on the brakes, quite a tricky braking zone because you've got to keep a little bit of steering input in, so it's very easy to lock that inside front. However, no such harm befalls these drivers as it stands, but Rob West still sat there in 4th place. However, I don't think it will be for too much longer because with the traffic up the road massively playing a part in this battle, Rob West, it could either massively work for him or massively work against him. It's all about getting through the traffic as cleanly and as quickly as possible without losing time to the car behind. But of course, Craig Thompson and Harry Sherwood battling away. So whilst they will be getting the blue flags, they are battling, and the drivers behind do have to respect that. A lock-up from Harry Sherwood. Does that allow Nicolas Cucatto up the inside? No, not as yet. So it's 4 cars nose to tail, albeit 2 separate battles on 2 separate laps of the race. Lap 7 of the race now are the leaders. Heading on towards the back straight once again. Both cars, both Nicolas Cucatto and Rob West, bouncing over the exit curb. Run up towards turn 4 once again. Nicolas Cucatto, the patience has been superb from him so far. He's not really forcing too much from the cars in front. However, you can slowly start to see the cracks form. Runs slightly wide on the exit of turn 4. Has a big look to the inside now. Is he going to get through? He's had to massively compromise his line. Rob West, this could work for him. Goes through the same gap. A big wobble from Nicolas Cucatto. 3 wide, almost there through the double right-hander. Harry Sherwood does manage to move out of the way. Rob West showing that he really doesn't want that 4th place. He's desperate to get past and get in towards the podium places. But Nicolas Cucatto, he will really be feeling the pressure from behind now. Rob West, a much wider line on the way in, trying to maximise his exit. Nicolas Cucatto parks the car on the apex, just to make sure that Rob West can't make the most of it as of yet. On the run up towards the final corner, Rob West visually is a lot closer. However, goes slightly deep on the brakes, looks for the good exit, and with the draft assistance all the way towards turn 1, it does mean that Rob could slowly start to pile even more pressure on. It could be a look to the inside. Tucks his way underneath the rear wing towards the start-finish line once again. Is he going to go to the inside or the outside? Sells the dummy to the outside, then cuts back to the inside. Good stuff from Rob West on the brakes. He's already got 3rd place. Can he secure it on the brakes? No lock-ups. He does manage to get the car slowed down. Gives himself plenty of room. Very respectful driving from the newcomer. Rob West, great stuff, up in towards 3rd place, and he's really trying to make good his escape now. Make sure he doesn't look in that rearview mirror and just puts all focus forward to try and build up a little bit of a gap. Peter Plastow running slightly wide on the exits of turn 4, just flashed a different colour on the timing tower, denoting that a driver has gone slightly astray and over the track limits. But Rob West 3rd place, Nicolas Cucatto 4th, and the lead gap still only 3/10 separating the VRC teammates. Matt Forrest now trying to work his way back up through the order after the lap 1 incident. He's managed to get his way past Chris Pio. Rob West off the road on the right-hand side. What has happened there? It was looking so good for Rob. He managed to work his way up in towards 3rd place. He's now right the way down in 8th and has got all the work to do. And with only, 2.5 minutes of the race remaining, can't really see too much happening. However, Matt Forrest has managed to go all the way around the outside, I believe, of Stephen Orrell and up into 5th place. So Matt has had a great recovery drive so far. I'd imagine he will just slowly start to stretch that advantage now. Stephen Orrell sat there in 6th, Chris Pio in 7th, and Rob West. It's such a shame for Rob. While we do have the top 10 reversed for the feature race, not exactly what he was looking for. So fallen out of the podium places now. The 4 cars nose to tail cross the line to go on to what will be lap number 9 of the race. Matt Forrest still sat there in 5th place. It's all line astern in towards turn 1. Nothing too much to shout about. Rob West, a little look up the inside of Chris Pio. And then looks for the cutback and maybe a slightly later apex heading on towards the 2nd straight. He might have made that work. However, it looks like Chris will have the draft assistance from Stephen Orrell up the road, making it very difficult for Rob to make a move. And once again, still nose to tail through turn 4. Nothing too much to shout about, but Matt Forrest, like I say, is going to extend that advantage and just leave the cars behind, just leave them battling and see what he can do about making some sort of inroads on the car in front. As we've seen, you can go from 3rd right the way down to 8th place. It just takes a little mistake for positions to arise. But Rob West, I'm sure he's full of fury now, trying to work his way and pick his way back through the order. However, if he stays where he is, it will sit him quite happily on the 2nd row of the grid, make that still the 2nd row, just the position further back for the reverse grid race. Chris Pio, a flick of oversteer on the exit, that's dropped him down into 8th place. Rob West now up into 7th, and the next target for him is Stephen Orrell, but in a few moments' time we'll be heading on to the last lap of the race. And now Chris Roberts piling on the pressure, jumping to the inside. He's looking to try and work his way past Peter Plastow. It's the final lap of the race, so no team orders really at this point. Pete has been leading pretty much from the start. And Chris Roberts has been sat there waiting patiently in 2nd place, trying to work his way past the VRC Blue Machine. On the run up towards turn 4, Pete washes out towards the outside, making sure that Chris has got to work for the draft assistance and work for the position as well, because the last thing you want to do is punch the hole in the air for your teammate throughout the entire race just for him to get you on the final lap. But Chris Roberts really not taking any prisoners here, looking to the inside, looking to the outside, doing what he can to potentially force a mistake from his teammate. Heading in towards Sector 2 now. They're still nose to tail. These are the closest cars on the circuit. They've been nose to tail for quite a substantial amount of the race now. Up the hill we go once again, now in towards what will be the final sector. Chris closes up on the brakes, slightly wider line, tries to better his exit. He does manage to make it work through the long left-hander now. Downhill, the car can wash wide if you're not careful. And then in towards the final corner for the final time. It's still Pete leading the way with, I think, just enough gap over his teammate, just to make sure that Chris can't get within touching distance on the run up towards the line. But it looks like it's going to be a 1-2 for Virtual Racing Compound. So after 15 minutes of racing, Peter Plastow crosses the line after a great start to take the win here at Interlagos. Wins the first race of the evening. Chris Roberts sat there in second place. Nicolas Cucatto had a little bit of pressure throughout the mid-race from Rob West, but after a mistake from Rob, crosses the line to make up your podium. And Martin de Jong crosses the line in fourth place, picks up some good points. Matthew Forrest in fifth. Rob West recovers up to sixth. Chris Pio now in seventh place. And Remco Barlow working his way through the final corner in a few moments' time to pick up eighth place. We lost Stephen Orrell on the closing stages of the race. Says he's out of the race, so potentially an incident, and then return to the pit lane. But our final finisher on the lead lap will be Remco Barlow in eighth place. So towards the line comes the WPR racing machine and takes the checkered flag. So all the drivers have now crossed the line, and we will have the results up on screen for you now. So Peter Plastow takes the first win of the evening, just around about half a second clear of his VRC teammate Chris Roberts. And it's Nicolas Cucatto rounding out your podium. Martin de Jong finishes in fourth. Fifth place is Matthew Forrest. Then Rob West, after a mid-race incident, manages to recover from eighth back up to sixth. Chris Pio in seventh. Remco Barlow finishes in eighth place. Stephen Orrell, I do believe, did return to the pit lane to finish in ninth place. Craig Thompson finishes in 10th. Harry Sherwood, the final of the finishers, in 11th. And Robert van den Heuvel and Tyler Campbell either not taking to the grid or retiring on the first lap of the race. But 15 minutes of sprint race action has just been completed, and very shortly we will have the 25-minute feature race getting underway. So the warm-up session in between the sprint and feature race has just been completed, and now we have the drivers taking to the reverse grid feature race. The top 10 finishers in race 1 will be reversed to make up the grid for race 2. So as you can see, a few of the drivers just taking to the circuit now. There is Craig Thompson, right up towards the start-finish line, awaiting the lights to denote the start of the race. Stephen Orrell sat there just alongside. And in a few moments' time, we will be going racing for the second time here today at Interlagos. Very famous circuit globally, as we previously mentioned, as it is related to the Formula One calendar, the closing stages. And all of the drivers just being nice and patient, waiting for the grid to form. Then in a few moments' time, like I say, we will be going racing. So just waiting for the lights. Bouncing off the rev limiter, and away we go. It's a good start from our pole sitter, an even better one from Stephen Orrell on the run up towards turn 1. I think he will have the inside and potentially even the lead if he can manage to get the car slowed down. Yes, he does. Up the inside. There he goes. 3, almost 4 wide in the background. A little bit of contact. It looked like Craig Thompson has been turned around, and in all of the melee, I don't think all of the drivers managed to avoid him. Who got affected in that one? Chris Pio, Pete Plastow potentially. You can see Matt Forrest with more damage on his car. There is Nicolas Cucatto down a few places, so potentially has got a very busy race ahead of him. Stephen Orrell still leading the way with quite a healthy margin. Very wide on the exit there is Remco Barlow. Chris Roberts all the way back up into second place. So he's really shifting up through the gears and making quite a good score of this evening. Plenty of points already on the board. Remco Barlow now down into third place. Newcomer Rob West looking to make amends for the mistake in race 1. He's got Martin de Jong all over his tail. Pete Plastow has managed to escape the grasp of anybody behind. Matthew Forrest has had an incident and returned to the pit lane. Chris Pio sat there in 7th place. Nicolas Cucatto a little further back in 8th. And then Harry Sherwood and Craig Thompson Well, Craig Thompson's in the pit lane now. Harry Sherwood is down in 9th place, however, still leading the way. Stephen Orrell and extending that margin, while Chris Roberts is potentially keeping half an eye on his rear view mirror. Remco Barlow still within that second margin, and Stephen Orrell goes around. Not 100% sure what happened there, whether he took a bit too much curb on the inside, but our original race leader now right the way down in 8th place. So a big loss from Stephen Orrell. That's promoted Chris Roberts up into the lead of the race at the perfect time as well. He just managed to escape the grasp of the car behind. Now we've got a 1.1 second lead in the background. Rob West, Martin de Jong side by side on the run up towards turn 1. Tends to be whoever's got the inside keeps the position. A big lock up from Rob West. Does he get it slowed down? Not really. That means he loses the place to Martin de Jong. Is he going to lose another to Remco Barlow? We will find out as they head out onto the straight. Once again, sideways on the exit of turn 3 is Martin de Jong. He does manage to stop the car from rejoining dangerously. So very clever driving from Martin de Jong. But another mistake from one of our drivers. Martin now down into 7th place. So Rob West has gone from defending 2nd from Remco Barlow to now defending 2nd from Peter Plastow, because Remco Barlow in the background all the way on the exit of the runoff. I'm not 100% sure how he's ended up out there. Maybe a lock up and it flicked the car one way, or maybe slightly braking on the grass. But Remco Barlow now down into 9th place. So Rob West in 2nd, Peter Plastow in 3rd, and Chris Roberts still leading the way. But we saw in race 1, and now that's Peter Plastow round into 2nd place. Rob West has spun at the bottom of the hill, and he's been demoted down into what is 5th place now. So a few little mistakes creeping in for our drivers now. Rob West trying to rejoin as safely as possible. Nicolas Cucatto trying to pile the pressure on Chris Pio for the final step on the podium. It's all go here at Interlagos for the feature race. Lots and lots to talk about. We haven't really had a chance to look away. 3 minutes of the feature race have already gone, and finally time to take a breath. The break doesn't last long, however, because looking up the inside now is Nicolas Cucatto. He gives it a little look, tries to pry the door open to get past Chris Pio for 3rd place, and then on the run through the centre S, he gets a great exit, does Nicolas Cucatto. Takes the wider line in to better his exit. Now heading onto the straight once again. Draft assistance gifted to him. He stays on the outside, almost clips the grass. Is he going to throw the car to the inside? Yes, he is. So in the braking zone on the run up towards turn 4, who's going to be last of the late breakers? Nicolas Cucatto isn't this time. However, he's still just about there side by side. Jumps on the brakes to avoid any contact. And that now means Nicolas Cucatto remains in 4th place. Chris Pio still there in 3rd, but our leaders, Chris Roberts and Peter Plastow, just pulling away. So both VRC cars, P1, P2, 4-second lead at the moment for Chris Roberts. Remco Barlow is now trying to potentially defend from Rob West, but it didn't last too long, however. Rob now up into 6th place after trying to recover from the previous incident. Harry Sherwood sat there in 5th place, heading through Sector 2 now. What can Rob West do about getting back in towards the top 5? Chris Pio and Nicolas Cucatto, once again, nose to tail. Once again, heading into turn 1, Chris Pio's got to defend 3rd place. He stays out wide, maybe trying to force the lock-up from Nicolas Cucatto on the inside. There's the lock-up, and Chris Pio swoops around the outside and retains that 3rd place. So clever driving from Chris, but then he's got to make sure he defends down the 2nd straight. So on the exit of turn 3, Nicolas Cucatto underneath the rear wing, getting as much aerodynamic benefit from the car in front as possible. Jinks over to the left-hand side. Is he going to be later on the brakes this time through? He's almost there once again. There's still almost the overlap at the apex, but cuts in nice and early. Chris Pio runs slightly wide, and Nicolas Cucatto manages to get 3rd place. For how long, I don't know, because these two drivers very close on pace. So potentially we could see a race-long battle, but now Nicolas Cucatto is into that clean air. He can really focus forward and maybe try and catch one of the virtual racing compound cars just slightly further up the road. It's all go in the background. Harry Sherwood still under pressure from Rob West. Remco Barlow sat there trying to take back 6th place. Through Sector 2 we go. The bottom of the hill, a bit of a compression. You've got to be careful once the car gets out of that compression, because the tail end of the car will get light and oversteer can creep in. You've got to be so careful on the brakes in these cars as well. So easy to lock up. Heading in towards Sector 3 now, through the long left-hand, you've just got to either slightly graze the brake or lift out of the throttle, minimise any sort of upset in the car. This is the battle for 5th place. You can see half a second between the pair of them. So Rob West still getting closer and closer and closer again, still continuing to push forward. Remco Barlow just sat behind in 7th place, not too far adrift, and now as we head up towards the start-finish line, Rob West looks to the long way round. It will be very wide, but we've seen the inside can force a lock-up. So crossing the line, Rob West is in 5th place. Can Harry Sherwood get the car slowed down? Yes, he can, but Rob West finds the grip on the unpolished surface and then takes 5th place, and that now means that Harry Sherwood is down into 6th place. Remco Barlow will be looking to follow suit, seeing whether he will be able to get past Harry Sherwood and get into 6th place. So the complexion of this battle has now completely changed. Remco Barlow has managed to work his way to the front end of affairs. Rob West sat there in 6th place. Harry Sherwood now down into 7th. And Martin de Jong on the coattails of this battle, trying to make it a 4-car battle, all for 5th place. However, Remco Barlow pulling away very slightly, getting himself into that clean air, and is enjoying it at the moment. Rob West trying to pull away from Sherwood behind in the Apex Tech machine. Then the Stage 1 Racing number 79 car of Martin de Jong just sat watching the battle. He's got the best seats in the house for this. He can just sit and assess what the drivers are doing in front and then maybe consider a move. Is he going to consider one in towards turn 1? Yes, he is. Jumps towards the left-hand side of the circuit. Can he get the car slowed down and avoid a lockup? No, he can't. There's the lockup. And a little bit of contact with Sherwood. But he manages to keep the car settled and fires the car off the exit with a good enough gap, I think, to prevent any sort of return fire from Harry Sherwood in towards turn 4, pardon me. So no further contact on the way. Rob West sat there in 6th place, and once again reeling in Remco Barlow in front. It seems like Rob West is definitely the quicker driver. He's just struggling to piece the consistency together. Up the hill they go. A double apex right-hander. Before you're hard on the brakes, trying to avoid a lockup once again on that curb. It's so easy to lock up on a curb, or if the car is slightly unbalanced. But the Porsche 992s really do know how to make some very close racing. Rob West not really doing too much in the way of attack. I think trying to force the error from Remco Barlow in front, but with 11 minutes of the race gone, still 14 minutes of the race remaining, we've got lots more battling on the way. So this battle here is now reignited between Rob West and Remco Barlow. Mr. Barlow having an incident on the lap prior, ended up spinning on the exit of the final corner, and Rob West has been into the pit lane for an unknown reason as of yet, but he has gone through the pit lane and wasn't stationary, I don't believe. No, he just went straight through the pit lane, so a drive-through penalty for one reason or another, potentially an incident point limit. But between an incident and a pit stop, it now means that Rob West and Remco Barlow fighting over 6th place over the previous 5th place they were battling over. And that's all she really wrote as far as it goes since the halfway point in the race, so nothing too much of note as of yet. We are going to keep our eyes on this battle, and the lead gap getting closer between Chris Roberts and Peter Plastow, 1.3 seconds separating first and second as it stands. There is Chris Roberts coming towards the line, and just behind him there is Pete Plastow. As soon as Pete gets within that 1 second margin, the draft assistance will really start to play into his hand. So with only 6 minutes of the race remaining, we could see a lead battle slowly start to impose upon Chris Roberts. So coming towards the line to complete lap number 15, head on to lap number 16 and the final lap of the race. The Virtual Racing Compound teammates are now side by side. This is the battle for the lead. Pete Plastow looks the long way round. Chris Roberts slows the car down as best he can for the apex and thrusts his way through the centre S. Turns 1 and 2, rounds turn 3 he goes, and on towards this straight. What can Pete Plastow do about taking his teammate off the top step of the podium? They've got to make sure they don't crash into each other. That'll be the last thing they need points-wise, but through turn 4 they go. Chris Roberts still at the head of affairs, but under ever-increasing pressure from Pete Plastow behind. On the run up the hill once again towards the double apex right-hander. Get the car pitched in for the first one. It sets you quite nicely up for the second. Over the crest you go. Make sure you don't lose the rear, and then on the brakes, defensive from Chris Roberts. In towards sector 2 now. You can see Pete Plastow looking this way and that, just trying to open a door, open a bit of a corridor to try and get through and past his teammate. And then going up the inside goes Pete Plastow. There's a little bit of overlap there, and he's managed to make it work all the way around the outside. Down the hill, I wasn't 100% sure he'd be able to make it work, but he forced the mistake, and up the inside he went, and then all the way around the outside. But what can Chris Roberts do about retaking that lead. He's got the quicker car in a straight line. He also has the draft assistance on top of that. So on the run up to line for the final time, lap number 16, 25-minute mark has been completed. So this is now the run to the line. What can Chris Roberts do about retaking the lead? It's going to be close between the pair of them. Who's going to get it? It is Pete Plastow, 9/100ths of a second, separating himself from Chris Roberts. An incredibly close finish. Towards the line to round out your podium will be Nicolas Cucatto. But very, very good stuff between the VRC teammates. Peter's driven incredibly well. He was chasing Chris down the entire race, and he really caught him at the most important time on towards the final lap. Didn't waste any time in getting by and managed to do it to take the win. Chris Pio crosses the line to finish in 4th place. Martin de Jong in the background coming towards the line to finish in 5th, or in towards the pit lane he comes. Will he get 5th place? No, he won't. Rob West will beat him to it. So Rob West finishes in 5th place. Martin de Jong finishes in 6th. Remco Barlow took 7th place, and Matthew Forrest, the final of the finishers, still working his way through the middle sector of the circuit after an incident earlier on in the race. But Virtual Racing Compound have really set themselves apart in this league. They've consistently had 2 very good points finishers, whether it be Matt Forrest, Chris Roberts or Peter Plastow. The two of those 3 always tend to be towards the top. But Matthew Forrest just running out of luck in the early stages of this race, but still continuing on, which is great to see. And finishing in 8th place will still get him some good points as well, and it will leave him okay in the drivers' standings on the run up towards Red Bull Ring, which is, of course, the next round. So towards the line to round out the final of the finishers is Matthew Forrest, and then we will have the results from the feature race available to us. So this is how they finished from the 25-minute feature race here at Interlagos, round 3 of the Virtual Racing Compound Porsche Super Cup. Peter Plastow managed to get the win on the run-up towards the line, or secure the win, I should say, after a very committed and very brave move up the inside and then round the outside through the final sector, ahead of Chris Roberts, only 9/100ths behind. Nicolas Cucatto rounds out your podium. Then it's Chris Pio in 4th, Rob West 5th, Remco Barlow in 6th, Martin de Jong in 7th, and Matthew Forrest, the final of the finishers, on the lead lap in 8th. Harry Sherwood finished in 9th place, and your retirees from the feature race: Stephen Orrell, Craig Thompson, Robert van den Heuvel, and Tyler Campbell. But that was the 25-minute feature race here at Interlagos. We will go to Red Bull Ring in just a week's time, where we will have the same layout of 15-minute sprint race followed by a 25-minute feature race. And as we keep saying at the end of every round, this championship is only going to get closer, so still lots more to look forward to. Make sure you catch all of the highlights either from the previous rounds and the next round as well at Red Bull Ring. I've been Jack Werrell and ran you through all of the highlights here from Interlagos, and we'll see you very, very soon. Bye bye.